Howdy readers and howdy film buffs. I'm Jason. This is Chapter and Verse, and this is a video that was meant to have been made 12 days ago. But life has been crazy, to say the least. So this is the late July video in my mortality project, which I call You Carry a Coffin Today. I will link the announcement video to that project below, in case you're curious to know kind of what this is all about. But basically, in a nutshell, I am reading books throughout the year and watching films throughout the year that focus on the issue and theme of mortality and all that that encompasses. And I invite those of you watching who have channels or who don't have channels to read and watch along with me. So, for July, we watched The Seventh Seal, which is about a knight of the Crusades returned home to Sweden only to encounter Death, the Grim Reaper, on the beach. And he engages in a chess match with Death. I've seen this movie many times. I love it. Every time I watch it, I go 3, 4, 5 years without watching it. And then when I see it anew, it feels like I'm seeing it for the first time. And I just literally fall in love with it all over again. And the book that we read in July was Jose Saramago's novel, Death with Interruptions, which is also about the Grim Reaper. And this takes place in a fictional country, although it's likely Portugal. And Death is a young to middle-aged woman, or that's the human persona that she takes on. But she decides that she's not going to take life anymore from human beings. And that makes up the first half of the book, and how the government and the society deals with that, fails to deal with that, miscalculates the repercussions of something like that. And then the second half of the book is kind of a love story, really. If you're a fan of Wim Wenders' film, Wings of Desire, you will probably really like this book. The second half of this novel feels a lot like Wings of Desire. Wings of Desire is set in Berlin. It is about an angel who falls in love with a human being who is a circus performer. And this is about the angel of death falling in love with a cellist. The last couple pages of this novel feels so much like the last 1 or 2 scenes in Wings of Desire that I can't help but feeling Saramago must have been influenced by Wings of Desire. So that was the book that we read. Before I get into what I wanted to discuss thematically with relation to the project in these two works of art, I wanted to bring up the fact that they're kind of like photographic negatives of each other. And I realize that many of you watching might not understand what photographic negatives means. Apparently there was a Guardian article recently about young people watching the most recent season of Stranger Things and being confounded by the dark room in the newspaper office in that season. And they have no idea why there's a red light, etc., etc. So the existence of photographic negatives is going to be alien to the younger viewers among you. But basically, I mean, what that is, right? So it's so here, what is light is dark in the corresponding image, and what is dark in the first image is light in the corresponding image. And The Seventh Seal and Death with Interruptions feel like negative kind of mirrors of each other. So in Bergman's film, we see a land that is being ravaged by death, right? The plague is running rampant. And in it, we have the knight who eventually determines to outwit death in order to save the characters Joseph and Mary and their little baby boy, not Jesus, but Michael. And then in the novel, we see a land in which no one dies, right? So in the film, in Seventh Seal again, it's a land that is just being torn apart by the plague. And then in the novel, it's a land where nobody is dying. And in it, we have people looking again to outwit death in order that their loved ones may die. So in Bergman's film, people are looking to outwit death. The knight specifically is looking to outwit death in order to save a young couple and their baby. And in the novel, people are looking to outwit death, who has suspended dying in order that their loved ones, whose health has just deteriorated to the point that what they want more than anything is to die. People are looking to outwit death in order so that their loved ones can die. So that was fascinating. Again, I've seen The Seventh Seal tons of times over the years, but this was my first time reading Saramago's novel, so I wasn't expecting that. I wasn't expecting that that kind of photographic negative effect between the two. There's a lot to talk about with this film and this book. But what I want to focus on in these is the significance of dignity in death, or in the midst of death, and how circumstances, people, and institutions can subvert dignity or strip it away altogether. So, if we start with Bergman's film, we see death making a fool of the knight in the confessional, right? The knight believes that he is confessing to a monk or a priest, and lo and behold, it is the Grim Reaper who is hearing his confession. He makes the knight seem ridiculous. He takes that dignity away from him, right? This man bearing his soul, making himself vulnerable, and in the end he's made to seem foolish for having done so. There's a scene in the film in a tavern where we have the actor, right, the traveling actor and clown, Joseph, being ridiculed and taunted and bullied by essentially everybody in the tavern. He is being made to dance like a bear, etc., etc. All of his dignity is stripped from him, is taken away from him in that scene. And the knight's squire actually comes in and gets revenge on the man who's kind of orchestrating it all. The woman who is sentenced to burn at the stake in the film is deprived of human touch and human kindness. The guards who are preparing her execution warn the knight and his squire to stay away from her, not because she's diseased or anything, but because she's had contact with the evil one, they say. Watching the film with all of this in mind, and with my project in mind, with this question of dignity in mind, I found myself wondering why it is that human beings feel so strong when we are in a position to make others feel weak or diminished. What is it about doing that, about stripping the dignity away from someone, that makes us feel big, that makes us feel large? I find that very troubling. It's something that has been true over the centuries. It's true today, unfortunately. But that seems an important question, I think, for all of us to think about. Now, Saramago's novel more directly explores this notion of dignity as it relates specifically to death. So when the society realizes that no one in this country is dying anymore, right? So as of 12:01 a.m. on January 1st, no one dies. And then the next day, no one dies. And the day after that, no one dies. Countrywide, deaths are still happening in other nations, but they're not happening in this country. And when the society realizes that no one's dying anymore, people come to think of it as a blessing. It is eternal life, and they're conscious of it, right? They don't have to pass through suffering. They don't think they have to pass through suffering to get there. They have it in their grasp, right? All these people are calling to cancel their life insurance policies, because why have life insurance if they can't die? So even though it seems like a blessing, it's not, right? Because they are still aging. They are still becoming infirm. Their health is deteriorating. They will eventually become incapacitated by their poor health. They will still be entitled to pensions, right, to their retirement that they've earned over decades of work. But how will the government support those pensions? How will the government be able to pay out those pensions over decades or centuries even, right, where people just remain alive They're essentially bedridden. They will be vegetables after a certain number of years, but they will still be collecting their pensions, and their children and grandchildren and great grandchildren and great great and great 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 and great 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 grandchildren will be spending that money however they see fit. But how is the government going to keep up with it if there is a constant ocean of retirees who are just aging indefinitely? That doesn't seem very much like a blessing. And how will the aged and infirm be cared for? So there's a massive infrastructure of care homes that is being kind of blueprinted in the first part of the novel. But given that, right, if you have this kind of honeycomb of retirement communities, of nursing homes, how is abuse going to be prevented? How is the dignity of the patients in those facilities going to be supported and maintained and lifted up? If people are lying in their own shit all the time because there's not enough employees to take care of them, and there's not enough oversight to make sure that care is being done responsibly, provided responsibly, how are people left to hold on to their dignity in the midst of in the midst of a situation like that? But the genius of Saramago's idea in this book is that we don't even have to go that far in imagining this, right? If you've got in today's world, in this day and age, where people are still dying, the Grim Reaper hasn't taken a vacation or hasn't thought that she'll put her occupation on hold for a while. We have government institutions that are gutting healthcare initiatives and healthcare programs. When I reach the age where I should be able to collect Medicare, Medicare is probably going to be gone. I've been paying into it my whole adult life, but it's not going to be there for me. It is certainly not going to be there for Americans who are younger than I am, people in their teens, 20s, and 30s. Now, until it goes away, they will be paying into it. But without Medicare, on some level, as we age, we are going to be cut adrift. We're going to be left to our own devices. And as a result of that, dignity cannot but be compromised. I mean, that's just going to be inevitable. So the question is then, what part do we play in allowing or ensuring that our loved ones age and die with dignity? What can we do so we can follow their advance directives to the letter? And if you haven't yet made out your advance directives, your will and your advance directives, you should. People who wait to the last minute, wait until their old age to do this, oftentimes death sneaks up on those people, and then their families are left to try to decide what should be done. If their loved one is hooked up to life support, etc., etc. If you haven't filled out your advance directives, your family has no idea what your wishes are. So it's important that you fill those things out, and then we as loved ones need to make sure that we carry out and respect our loved ones' advance directives. We can spend time with them and humble ourselves as might be required. When you're caring for someone who is elderly, who has lost, many of their physical abilities, et cetera, et cetera. Sometimes we're required to bathe people or clean up after people after they've gone to the bathroom. And it's important to remain humble, I suppose, in situations like that. However distasteful something is, if you're caring for someone, that's the bottom line, right? That's really the bottom line. That should be what is most important. There's a great scene in Jamie Quattro's Fire Sermon. Not to revisit the incidents of my irritation with the quarterfinal results in my group judging the Booktube Prize this year, but one of the brilliant scenes in Fire Sermon dealt with a husband cleaning up his wife's shit after an accident in the hospital. She'd given birth a couple of days before. and was having difficulty going to the bathroom for days and days and days, and nothing that the doctors were trying was working. And eventually, eventually it does, and there's just this mess is made. And I when I read that scene, she comes back in and she sees her husband cleaning her soiled bedclothes, her pajamas. I just remember thinking, what an extraordinary expression of love. Yeah, it was unlike anything else I had read before. And granted, the character in the book wasn't dying, right? This didn't happen as a result of her being infirm. But those are the kinds of things that we will find ourselves doing as we get older, and the people that we love and are caring for are getting older still, are falling victim to disease and to age, and to God knows what else. Be interested in the people in your life who are aging, who are dying. Don't be interested in them as a kind of concession or as flattery, but allow yourself to be interested in the people that you love. And that holds true of everybody. That holds true of your children, of your friends, of people who are in perfect health. Be interested in the people around you, the people that you love. And then finally, we can see the people, right? There's a big difference between looking at someone and actually seeing them. We can listen to them. There's a huge difference between hearing what someone is saying and really listening to what someone is saying. And if we can permit ourselves to really see, to deeply see the people that we love in their time of need, to listen to them, to touch them, putting your hand on the shoulder of somebody that you love, touching the side of their face, right? This can be challenging for some people. So it seems to me that is one of the things that we can work on in ourselves, is somehow making ourselves more confident, more comfortable with the idea of touching the people that we love, holding them, hugging them, putting our hand on the top of their head as we say goodbye to them. These kinds of things, it seems to me, especially at the end of life, where maybe hospice care is a reality, or care in the home, where a bedroom or a living room has come to feel more like a hospital room. These kinds of things go so far toward preserving the dignity of the people that we love as they're leaving this earth. And those seem to me small things that are just absolutely loaded with significance. So anyway, that's my gauntlet thrown down to not only to you, but to myself as well. These are the things that we can do. This is why it's so important to insist on the dignity of people who are dying. It has to be about them. It can't be about us. It has to be about them. So anyway, that is my belated video. If you read Death with Interruptions, and I know many of you did, Roz did, Brian did, Alba did, I'm not sure who else did, or if you watched Bergman's The Seventh Seal, let me know in the comments below what you thought. I can't wait to hear. Again, I'm so sorry it's taken me so long to get this video done, but work has been crazy, and there has just been tons of yard work, and I have been volunteering, and physical therapy has just been insane. I have been traveling. To give you some idea, I had a 3-day weekend last weekend, and I probably read, 15 pages over those 3 days. That's how busy I've been. But later this month, we're not going to be reading a book for August, but later this month, we'll be watching David Lowery's film. Let's see if I can... There we go. David Lowery's film, A Ghost Story, starring Casey Affleck and Rooney Mara. This is going to be a lot of fun to talk about. So I will be back, fingers crossed, later this week with the literary fiction book tag, which was created by Jasmine over at Jasmine's Reads, who is one of the booktubers who is most dear to me. I will see you guys again very soon. Thank you for your patience, and adios.